For years and years, the United States were trying to catch one of the most dangerous men on earth. The world called him the Merchant of Death. And the US caught him. Then a federal jury convicted him of conspiring to kill Americans. He got 25 years sentence, and then you gave him back to Russia. In 22, you traded him for basketball star Brittney Griner. But now, the man you freed, the Merchant of Death who conspired to kill Americans, is running for the Russian parliament. But for me, that's not surprising at all. What's surprising is that he's a regular guest on the biggest shows in the English language media, looking into the camera, talking to you. Well, by the way, 2 years ago, he told you to start a civil war. Now he's talking about Ukraine and Israel. His name is Viktor Bout, and you sort of know him already. That arms dealer Nicolas Cage played in Lord of War, that's based on Viktor Bout. Now, he got from a federal prison cell to your podcast feed. That's not an accident, that's a plan. Because you don't have to break into a country to get inside its head. Sometimes, you just need someone inside that country to hand you the microphone, and so the call is coming from inside the house. But before we go further, please hit that like button because it decides whether YouTube shows this video to anyone else. And stick around. Let's get back to the Merchant of Death. First, who he actually is, because arms dealer undersells it. Through the 90s and 2000s, Viktor Bout ran one of the biggest private weapons trafficking operations on the planet. Cargo planes full of guns into Africa, the Middle East. He armed warlords all across the world, and he didn't ask any questions. The US finally got him in 2008. Undercover agents posing as Colombian rebels, the group that wanted to kill Americans. Bout sat across the table from them and made deals. 30,000 assault rifles, anti-aircraft missiles, and more. And he said one thing that's on all of the agents' records. He said, "We have the same enemy. That enemy is you. You, the Western world." Yeah, that's what he went to prison for, conspiring to kill Americans. And then, December 22, Russia gets him back. Basketball star Brittney Griner goes one way, the Merchant of Death goes the other. Within days of landing in Moscow, Viktor Bout is handed a party membership card. And the party matters. That's the LDPR, Liberal Democratic Party of Russia. On paper, and only on paper, it's an opposition party. In reality, it's been loyal to the Kremlin ever since. That's kind of a KGB-grown opposition you should have to pretend you're democratic. And by the way, LDPR is ultra-nationalist. It was founded by a man who promised to shoot his rivals and take back the old empire. The whole thing was a KGB invention from the start. It's a controlled opposition. LDPR is actually where the Kremlin parks people it wants to protect, because a seat in the Russian parliament comes with one very useful perk: immunity. Yeah, no one in the parliament can be prosecuted. And don't take my word for it, take Andrei Lugovoy. In 2006, a former Russian spy turned opposition to the KGB named Alexandra Litvinenko was poisoned in London. A radioactive isotope slipped into his tea. He died slowly over 3 weeks. A British inquiry named the prime suspect, a former KGB man, Andrei Lugovoy, and concluded the hit was probably approved by Putin himself. Russia's answer? LDPR made the suspect a member of parliament, and immunity put him out of reach. He's been a Russian lawmaker ever since. Today, he sits near the top of the Duma's Security Committee. LDPR's list for this year's election, the very same list Viktor Bout is on has Andrei Lugavoy's name on it too. Yeah, the merchant of death and the man accused of a radioactive assassination in London. Same party, same ballot, running side by side. LDPR is not a political party. It's a witness protection program for the Kremlin's most useful men. I personally know 2 politicians from Putin's native St. Petersburg who were LDPR members in the local parliament of St. Petersburg. And they told me all about how much they paid for the membership. They were the classic Russian mobsters of 1990s. Now, they're peacefully living in Spain. They left many, many years ago, changing their Brioni suits with bulletproof vests under them to the quiet life on the coast. Of course, they paid huge money to get out. But let's get back to Viktor Bout. When he got back from the US prison, his paintings, he painted in prison, toured Russia as official state-blessed exhibitions, museums, galleries. The Merchant of Death reframed as a folk hero. Then he gets a seat at the regional legislature, and now this fall, his name is on the national list for Russia's parliamentary elections. He will be sitting member of the Russian Duma, that's a Congress, in October. You see the arc? Notorious arms dealer, to prisoner, to traded man, to politician, to national candidate. That's not a guy drifting into politics after a rough patch. That is a state taking a convicted criminal and rebuilding him on purpose. And the final piece of that makeover doesn't happen in Moscow. It happens in your Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. When the US traded Bout away, the people who knew him best, the agents who spent years hunting him, said exactly what was coming. They said it on day one. Back then, in 22, the DEA official who ran the investigation said the Merchant of Death was back in action, angrier at the West than ever. And a former FBI agent who worked domestic terrorism went further. He looked at the deal and said, "Notice who Putin took back and notice who he left behind." Because there was another American in Russian prison, Paul Whelan, a former Marine. Putin could have included him in the deal. No, he didn't. He took Bout, he kept the Marine, and he let the Americans fight about it. Was it worth it? A basketball star or a Marine? A basketball star or a Marine? Well, Putin freed Bout to do one specific job: inflame the American right against the American left, bleed away support for Ukraine, split you down the middle. That's score one for Putin. That was 22. Now look at where we are. The Merchant of Death is a recurring guest in American media, talking about American politics. And who's inviting him? The Alex Joneses, the Tucker Carlsons. You might ask, are these people compromised? That doesn't matter. That's not the question. That's not the issue. Just drop this argument. Drop it. It's a wrong question. You can argue forever. You will never see the wires. Maybe there is a wire. Maybe there isn't. But Viktor Bout, there's nothing to argue about. He's not a maybe. He's not an enigma. He's openly on paper running to be a member of the Russian government. And he is talking to the audience of millions. At first, he talked about Ukraine. Stop funding Zelensky, walk away. Today, his big theme is Israel. He's warning Americans about the Israeli takeover of US foreign policy. Because the goal was not Ukraine. Although, they would love for you to stop selling weapons to Ukraine. And now, actually, it's not really about Israel. It's about whatever is tearing you apart this month. Yeah, he just shows up and pulls on it. The goal is never to win you over to a position. The goal is the tearing itself. Which brings me to the scariest thing. 2 years ago, Viktor Bout told Americans it was time for another American revolution. Take to the streets. He agreed that January 6th was a false flag operation. A convicted foreign arms dealer, a man who wanted you killed, using an American platform to call for Americans to turn on each other? Remember that man across from Colombians? Well, Colombians. We have the same enemy. He never changed his enemy, he just changed his pitch. Back then, he sold guns to people who hated America. Now, he sells a story to Americans hoping they'll start hating each other. And yeah, I get the objection that you will have free speech. You're right. He's allowed to talk. People are allowed to listen. And that's true. That's real. No, don't ban anybody. That's a wrong path. I'm not saying anyone should ban anybody. But free speech is the immune system of a free country like the US. And it's a soft spot at the exact same time for the KGB. Just better don't think that a man you convicted of trying to kill you is a neutral expert on your country. Free speech is a gift free people give each other. It's not a certificate of honesty. So here's where we are. Just remember who Viktor Bout is and what party, what political party he's a part of. Keep following those quiet links. And now, please hit that like button, and I'll see you at the next one.